Of course, the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic are far-reaching and have certainly impacted, is particularly job losses that we continue to speak about today. Millions of jobs have been lost at this point in time. One can ascertain to that definitely, whether it be in mining and tourism and the like as well. Unemployment Insurance Fund has warned that the worst is yet to come then as well. My colleague Mbalenhle Mthethwa follows this story up for us. Mbali, the difficulty here is that we just don't know how big an issue this certainly could be. And the UIF, as they said, warning that the worst is yet to come.
Yes, indeed, Arabile, the UIF has warned that the worst is yet to come. And essentially, the stories that I have heard today paint a picture, a very small, it's a small number of people, in comparison to the rest of the country. But the picture that it paints is that there are a large number of people who have lost their jobs as a result of the national lockdown. We know and we understand that economic activity ground to a standstill as of the 27th of March earlier this year, when the hard lockdown came into effect. We understand that with all the easing of restrictions, there are certain businesses that have been allowed to open at a limited capacity, unfortunately, which means that not everyone has been able to go back to work and so on. But essentially, the people that I've been speaking to since early this morning outside the Braamfontein Labour offices have been telling us about, their experiences with regards to the claims process, with regards to getting access to, the payment, the funds that were promised through the UIF TERS scheme. And essentially, we've also spoken to other employees, other people, South Africans, who say that they've had to join the unemployment line because their companies could no longer afford to keep them employed. I spoke to one particular gentleman early this morning who said that he's lost his job as a result of the lockdown. He showed me a letter which came from his employer terminating his employment contract, which was meant to be an employment contract of 3 years, but has been cut short as a result of this national lockdown. We know that companies are struggling with demand and with regards to, paying salaries and, cash flow during this period, given the fact that, economic activity has been reduced to a very minimum because of these measures that are meant to protect South Africans and that are meant to curb the spread of the virus. Essentially, I've also spoken to the Commissioner of the UIF, who's also spoken about measures that the UIF is trying to put in place with regards to, curbing and tracing the money that is meant to be paid out to beneficiaries. And, they're going to be investigating cases of fraud, with regards to the TERS scheme. We've heard a lot of people also, we had a group of people also in Braamfontein, a very big group of people who had marched to the offices of PRASA, who have also been unemployed. They worked for companies that were contracted to PRASA as security guards, and essentially those contracts have ended. And unfortunately, they say that PRASA, they claim and they allege that PRASA is in the process of actually insourcing and hiring security guards, but unfortunately they feel left out because they were not included in the insourcing process and have since taken to stand outside and march and just stage a march outside the offices of the political party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, in an attempt to get the political party to intervene in what they feel is unfair labor practices. This is not the first time we've seen people standing outside or picketing or taking to the streets as a result of, unpaid TERS benefits and so on. Essentially, these have been the scenes around the country, which begs the question, are these measures that have been put in place with regards to, in an effort really to assist businesses that are struggling during this period, efficient and enough to protect people's jobs and so on, given the stories that we have heard during this period and throughout the day, and from the conversations that we've had with a number of people today. We are in Soweto right now, and as you can see, the numbers are a lot less than we saw in Braamfontein. Over here, we've got both the officers of the home affairs officers as well as the officers of the Labour Department. So the queue is pretty longish, but we're not sure if they're all here for Labour purposes or if they're just here to do home affairs related things. But for now, though, it's back to you in studio.
Mbalenhle Mthethwa, thank you so much for that reporting there. Of course, the UIF office is certainly an element of discussion that has been quite heavy for quite some time. People still asking then, of course, for their payouts when it comes to some sort of relief that was meant to come from the UIF. It hasn't been the greatest of systems, one can admit to that. But certainly the question around where to from here will be the question. The UIF saying that the worst is yet to come.